for you is related to the issue of Sola Scriptura, and I was wondering if you could tell me if you believe the church today currently possesses anything that is theopneustos other than the scriptures.
Sure, the divine liturgy.
Are you suggesting that it's theopneustos, God breathed in the same exact way as the Holy Scriptures?
Yes.
Okay, how do you justify that claim?
Well, if you look in the Old Testament, when Nadab and Abihu are rebuked, they're rebuked because you can't introduce or get creative with how we worship God. So either God left the church destitute in the first, second, third century with no clear pattern of worship, or the apostles, outside of the written texts, crafted apostolic liturgies that we know via tradition. So does the New Testament contain a explicit worship service?
No, I wouldn't say it contains
Okay.
a specific order.
So does God not care about how he's worshiped anymore?
No, I believe God cares about how he's worshipped. And I think if we look at Nadab and Abihu, God specifically doesn't want anything unauthorized.
Correct. So the
is
apostles authorized a liturgical service, which Protestant liturgists actually will admit is an apostolic practice in the first, second century, right? Or not?
Well, you would have to demonstrate that the apostles themselves gave a liturgical order.
Well, the demonstration is the tradition of the church. And since you don't accept that, by definition, there is no way to demonstrate it if it is an extra canonical thing, because your assumption is that it has to be proven from the canonical texts. But what is the normative authority by which we know what the canonical texts are?
Well, I would say that the canon is self-attesting. In that,
so when there was all of these disputes throughout the first several centuries, who was really the self-attesting canon authority?
Well, if it's self-attesting, then it doesn't need an extra authority. God does not swear by anyone other than himself.
So you're not even aware of how this actual process happened in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth centuries. You don't think do you think that we can go read the people debating about what text went into the canon in those centuries?
Oh, yeah. So,
okay, so who was the Baptist pastor that figured out at that time that it was self-attesting?
Well, there was obviously no Baptists back then the way that we have Baptists now. My point is that the canon itself is self-attesting.
Okay, you say that. How do you know that, and where is the historical evidence of that?
Well, it flows from the fact that it is God's own word, and God cannot.
So you keep stating things that you've not demonstrated that just reinforce what your position is. So I know you think that, but can you give me anybody in those centuries that argues that the canon was self-attesting and that we would solve the canonical issue by just simply saying, well, the one that's self-attesting? You don't see how ahistorical that is?
I am not aware of a self-attesting case for the canon in the early period, but
interesting.
It doesn't flow from that the canon is determined by a human group that has authority here on earth.
Well, again, you say that, but when I go to the apostolic canons, which was the Eastern Church's normative approach to what was the Bible, and Canon 85 explicitly argues for pretty much most of the Deuterocanon, why wasn't that self-attesting there?
Well, if you want to talk about the Deuterocanon, I would go to what Paul says in the book of Romans.
I know you think that Paul talks about that in Romans, but I want to know, in the 4th century, where was anybody with your mindset trying to figure out, well, wait a minute, apostolic canons, it's just the one that's self-attesting?
Well, like I said, I'm not aware of anyone in the early period specifically making the argument for canon on the basis of its self-attestation. But I do think that...
So it's ahistorical, right? So your position is ahistorical. Is that what you're admitting?
I'm saying the specific argument for the canon is something that was not the issue of the early church.
Oh, wait a minute. Again, not true, because I'm showing you Apostolic Canon 85 right here, which has, for the entirety of the East, most of the Deuterocanon. Are you familiar with the Council of Rome under Damasus?
I'm somewhat familiar with it.
Okay. It also, in the West, in the 4th century, has the Deuterocanon as normative. So East and West, throughout the entire church of the 4th century, almost the entirety of the church, and I don't know if there's anybody who disagrees until Jerome, almost all the entire church accepts the Deuterocanon. So they all got it wrong.
Yeah, I think Jerome was right to
Okay.
look at the Jews themselves to see what scriptures they
Why do
accepted.
post-apostolic antichrist Jews that changed the deuterocanonical text according to Irenaeus and Justin Martyr, why do they have any authority for the church to determine the canon?
I think that the Jews already had a canon in the life of Christ. That's why Jesus.
No, they didn't. No, that's your assumption. And most Protestant scholars, I have a whole essay on this, admit that at the time of the apostles, there was not a fixed canon. The only thing that comes close to that is the legend of the Council of Jamnia, and that is after the time of the apostles. So the apostolic Bible is the Septuagint, which includes the deuterocanonical books, and that's why Paul and Jesus reference the deuterocanonical stories and texts many times in their epistles. So that's absolutely false.
I think if you're familiar with the scholarship of Roger Beckwith, he demonstrates that there were specific sacred books laid up in the temple. So obviously
Right.
the temple.
So nobody understood this until a random Protestant scholar of the modern period said, "Oh, there was some books laid up in the temple, and that's the Protestant canon."
Well, Josephus himself testifies to the.
So Jews, Antichrist Jews, tell us what the canon is for the church. Did they tell us the New Testament canon too?
Well, when I'm talking about the Old Testament canon, I'm talking about what was understood by the Jews during the life of Christ.
Yeah, but that's not true. Again, that's does Paul use the Septuagint?
Yeah, because he's writing in Greek to Greek-speaking people. So
okay. Did the Septuagint include the deuterocanonical text?
Well, the
answer is yes. Protestant scholars admit this.
Well, my point is that the Septuagint in that early period was not it wasn't all bound in one thing. We have a collection of various manuscripts that.
I can give you multiple Protestant scholars that admit that, yes, it included the deuterocanonical text, and Paul cites the Deuterocanon many times.
I don't dispute that fact. I was just saying the Septuagint, as it existed in the ancient period, we have a collection of.
Okay, so in other words, you just keep moving the goalposts, you just keep coping. So again, this is not going anywhere because what?
I'm just trying to be specific about what it is we're talking about. I don't think I'm coping. But
what? Josephus was a crazy cult member. What does he have to do with the Old Testament Jewish canon? And by the way, he was a Hellenized Jew anyway.
I'm saying he's a Jewish person who attests to the fact that there were certain sacred books that were laid up in the temple. And so, for one thing, the temple has to be in existence.
How do you know that what's laid up in the temple tells you the Jewish canon?
Because the understanding of the Jews was that nothing could be laid up in the temple unless it had.
How do you know that tells you the Jewish canon? When was Jamnia?
That was in the early 2nd century.
Thank you. So how do you know that tells you the canon?
I'm not talking about Jamnia. I'm talking about prior.
No. How do you know that the allegation of what's laid up in the temple tells you the canon?
Because in order for something to be laid up in the temple, it had.
How do you know that tells you the canon? You just keep stating that the position tells. What?
I'm saying. You're not allowing me to finish what I'm saying.
You just restate the argument, which is not telling me how you tell you that how that tells us the canon.
I'm saying that the books had to be holy, and so the fact that they were laid up in the temple like that.
How does that tell you the canon? If the Jews themselves debate the canon centuries later at Jamnia, we don't even know if Jamnia is real. It's just a legend.
Well, the fact that they were debating the canon doesn't mean a canon didn't exist. You and I disagree on the canon. Doesn't mean that there is not.
No. It's you that disagrees because you're not in the church and you have no canon other than what you think the Jews told you is the canon. So it's actually you that's the Judaized heretic. You're not even in the church. So you're not even disagreeing with anybody but the church. Huh?
Was Jerome a Judaized heretic? What about Athanasius?
Oh, wait a minute. So now individual church fathers are the ones that we pick?
I didn't say that they
Athanasius cites the deuterocanonical text. So what are you talking about?
Well, in his 39th festal letter, he doesn't list all of the deuterocanon.
He cites the deuterocanonical text throughout his writings, and what he actually says is that for catechumens, the deuterocanon is perfect to catechize them. So you don't believe that the deuterocanon is for catechizing people. And why do you listen to Athanasius? He was a pope of Alexandria.
A pope of Alexandria.
Yeah, you didn't know that that's a classic title for also the bishop of Alexandria?
Yeah, and
no, you didn't know that. You didn't know that. Admit that you didn't know that because you balked at it.
I balked at it because when you bring it up as if it would be so ridiculous, I would give heed to anything Athanasius says, when very obviously him being referenced as the father in Alexandria is not the same thing that's understood by modern Roman Catholics in regard to the papacy.
So this is this again. The fact that he's called Pope proves that it's not a title unique to the papacy. It's an argument against the papacy. So you even understand what the argument is. It just shows that you're not even. Have you actually read Athanasius? Have you read the festal letters?
I've specifically read the 39th festal letter.
Okay.
I don't have.
Right, because that's the only thing that you cared about because you thought it backed up the Protestant canon when he says that actually the deuterocanon is for catechesis. Have you read what he says about the Eucharist?
What specifically?
At all? In any of the festal letters?
No, I've not.
Okay, right. Have you read the canons of Nicaea?
I have not read the canons of Nicaea.
Okay, so why are you even debating stuff that you're not even familiar with the basics? That's why it's just a waste of time for these people who have no idea about any of this stuff, but they want to come and debate what they think some Protestant scholar told them about, well, it was laid up in the temple, so it's the canon. Tomo, what's up?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Good. So something I've been wondering. So how come when it comes to talking with Zionist evangelicals, you could give them irrefutable proof that this whole, Christians united with Jews is completely unbiblical. You can give them scripture verses, and then you can give them quotes from early Christians, such as the Church Fathers or other saints from years ago, such as when St. Ignatius said that Christianity did not come from Judaism. Judaism is a perversion of Christianity. You can give them all of that, and they'll just still automatically call you an anti-Semite, or from my experience, they'll use a bunch of fallacies such as a straw man argument. So why do you think they do this?
Because they are indoctrinated, and people don't believe things just on the basis of logic, reasoning, and argumentation. People believe things because of emotional attachments, because of delusions, because of pride. There can be all manner of reasons why. Look at the Roman Catholic guy that just said the other day that we shared his tweet. He said, even if my Roman Catholicism is proven false, I'll just remain Catholic. So they don't care about what's true, first and foremost. And that's the main problem with a lot of people. They would rather stay in their heresy or their stupid pet theory that they've come up with than believe what is true. Now, why did I say the canons of Nicaea? Because any person who's a Baptist, there is no way you could read the canons of Nicaea and come away thinking that you have anything in common with the faith of the people that wrote the Nicene Creed or the canons of Nicaea. Every Protestant should read, go to New Advent, and I'm not just talking about the Nicene Creed, the canons of the Council of Nicaea. Because you will notice that they talk about the Eucharist as a sacrifice. They talk about monastics. They talk about excommunication. They talk about bishops and episcopate. They talk about jurisdictions between Rome, Alexandria, and Antioch. Baptists don't have jurisdictions. You don't have bishops. You don't have the Eucharist. You don't have any of this stuff. And they all lie and pretend that they have the same faith as Athanasius. No, you don't. It is not true. We believe the same thing as Athanasius. For example, synodal church government and catechumens. Eucharist at the point of death. Deacons can't touch the Eucharist before the priest touches it. Stop acting like you have the faith of Athanasius when you don't. It's just not true. And that's why he relies on the schism of this or that Jewish idea of what the canon is. So Protestants are unwitting and willing Judaizers from the get-go.